Hello, and welcome to another episode of Super English Talks. This is the place where we talk about real-life topics in a simple way, so you can improve both your English and your mindset at the same time. I'm really happy that you're here today, and I think today's episode will give you something powerful to think about. The phrase we're going to explore is one you've probably heard many times. Honesty is the best policy. Now, what does that actually mean? Is honesty always the best choice? And if it is, then why does it sometimes feel so difficult to be honest, not only with other people, but also with ourselves? These are the questions we're going to talk about together in this episode. Let's start with the proverb itself. Honesty is the best policy is a very old saying. The meaning is simple. Living truthfully and acting with integrity is the smartest, safest, and most reliable way to live your life. It doesn't mean that being honest is always easy. In fact, it can often feel very uncomfortable. But in the long run, honesty usually gives us more peace of mind, more trust from others, and more respect for ourselves. Think about this for a second. Have you ever told a small lie just to avoid hurting someone's feelings? Maybe you said you liked their cooking, even though you didn't. Or maybe you hid the truth because you didn't want to get into trouble. We've all done this. It's part of being human. But here's the real question. How did you feel afterwards? Did you feel lighter or heavier? Did you feel at peace, or did you carry guilt inside? Sometimes even a small lie can create stress, worry, or distance between us and others. Honesty takes courage. It's not just about words. It's about self-respect. It's about choosing to be real, even when it's not the easiest path. That's what we're going to explore today. Why honesty matters, how it helps us grow as people, and why it can be the key to building stronger relationships and a more peaceful life. Now, I want you to reflect on something. Have you ever been afraid to tell the truth because you didn't want people to judge you? Or maybe you stayed quiet because you didn't know how someone would react? And what about being honest with yourself? Are you truly open about your goals, your mistakes, or your emotions? That kind of honesty can be even harder, but it's also the most important kind. Honesty is not about being perfect. It's a practice, something we build little by little. It's a skill we grow through choices, self-awareness, and experience. And honesty doesn't mean saying everything that comes to your mind without thinking. That's not honesty. That's being careless. Real honesty is about balance. It's about speaking truth with kindness. It's about being clear but also gentle. It's about living with integrity while still caring for others. So, as we go through this episode, I invite you to relax, to open your mind, and to think deeply about your own relationship with honesty. At the end of the day, honesty isn't just about right or wrong. It's about connection, character, and creating a life you can feel truly proud of. So, let's begin with this simple but powerful question. What does honesty really mean? Most of us would answer quickly. Honesty means not lying or telling the truth. And yes, that's correct, but that's only the starting point. Honesty is much more than just giving facts. It's also about being real, being clear, and being true to yourself, even when it feels uncomfortable. For example, honesty is not only saying, the meeting is at 10 a.m. or I finished the report yesterday. That's factual honesty, and it's important. But honesty also includes emotional honesty, like admitting when you're sad or nervous, or when you don't understand something. It's about showing up as your real self. And when you live honestly in this way, life becomes simpler. You don't have to keep track of lies. You don't have to pretend. You can relax, knowing that the way you live is in line with who you really are. That is the heart of honesty. And that's what we're going to keep exploring today. There's another kind of honesty that many people find even harder to practice, and that is emotional honesty.
So, what does that mean?
Emotional honesty is when you share how you really feel inside. It's not about facts, it's about feelings. For example, saying things like, "I'm feeling overwhelmed. That comment hurt my feelings. I'm not okay right now." These are not facts like, "The meeting is at 10 a.m." or "I finished my homework." These are feelings. And for many people, this kind of honesty is the most difficult of all. Why is it so hard? Because when we show our real emotions, we feel vulnerable. When you admit that you are afraid, or disappointed, or in need of help, you are opening your heart. And when you open your heart, you take the risk of being judged, rejected, or misunderstood. That can feel scary. But here's the truth. Without emotional honesty, it's very hard to build real relationships. If you always hide your feelings, people can never fully know you. They may know the surface, but not the real you. Emotional honesty allows us to trust others, and it also allows others to trust us. Being emotionally honest means you don't wear a mask all the time. It means you don't smile when you actually feel like crying. You don't say, "I'm fine," when deep down you're struggling. Instead, you give yourself permission to be real. And in today's world, where so many people pretend to be okay, being real takes a lot of strength. Now, let's think about honesty in different areas of life. In relationships, honesty is the foundation of trust. Imagine you have a friend who always tells you what you want to hear, even if it's not true. At first, it may feel nice, but over time, you begin to wonder, can I really trust this person? Do they actually mean what they say? A true friend is not someone who tells you only what makes you comfortable. A true friend is someone who speaks from a heart, who is willing to say the truth with kindness, even if it's not easy to hear. That kind of honesty is what makes a relationship deep and meaningful. In the workplace, honesty is just as important. Now, honesty at work doesn't mean saying everything that pops into your mind. It doesn't mean being rude or unfiltered. Instead, it means being clear, reliable, and professional. For example, if you make a mistake, honesty means admitting it. Instead of covering it up or blaming someone else, you take responsibility. And when you do that, people actually respect you more. Everyone makes mistakes, but not everyone has the courage to admit them. When you are honest, you show maturity, responsibility, and the desire to grow. Workplace honesty also means giving feedback in a respectful way. Not just saying what your coworker wants to hear, but being real with them when something needs to improve. If you do this with kindness, people will trust your words and value your opinion. And then there is the hardest type of honesty of all, self-honesty. Self-honesty means being truthful with yourself about your life, your habits, your dreams, and even your weaknesses. It means asking yourself the tough questions like, am I doing what I really want with my life? Am I proud of how I behave when nobody is watching? Am I avoiding something important just because I'm afraid? These are not easy questions. They take courage. But this is where true growth begins. If we are not honest with ourselves, we stay stuck. We keep repeating the same patterns, even if they don't serve us. But when we are honest, we finally see where we are, and from there, we can choose where we want to go. So, when you look at all these different forms of honesty, factual honesty, emotional honesty, honesty in relationships, honesty at work, and self-honesty, you start to see something important. Honesty is so much bigger than just not lying. It's about showing up as your true self in your words, in your actions, and in your emotions. It's about saying what you mean, meaning what you say, and having the courage to live in alignment with your values. Of course, honesty is not always easy. Sometimes it feels risky. Sometimes it feels uncomfortable or even messy. But in the end, honesty is the bridge between who we are and who we want to become. It's the tool we use to shape a life that feels real, not just convenient or comfortable. So, before we move on, I want to leave you with a reflection. Where in your life could you be more honest right now? Is it with a close friend or family member? Is it in your workplace, in how you communicate or take responsibility? Or maybe it's with yourself, in the way you talk about your own goals, dreams, and fears? Remember, honesty is not about being perfect. It's about being real. And realness is where true change begins. So, what does honesty is the best policy really mean? It means that no matter where you are, at home, at work, or deep inside yourself, living honestly is the smartest and healthiest way to live. Because it builds trust, it creates peace, and it allows you to live a life you can be proud of. Now it's time to really focus on the phrase that is at the heart of today's episode. Honesty is the best policy. You've probably heard this saying many times before, maybe from a teacher, a parent, or even in a story. But let's pause for a moment and ask, what does it really mean, especially in our daily lives? At its simplest, this proverb tells us that being honest, telling the truth, acting with integrity, and living sincerely is the smartest and most reliable way to live. The word policy here is important. Policy means a rule, a guide, or a way of behaving. So when we say honesty is the best policy, we're really saying, let honesty be the rule that guides your life. This isn't just a modern idea. It has a long history. The phrase is believed to have come from Old English and European traditions, but the value of honesty is something you'll find across many cultures and languages. From ancient philosophers to religious teachers to moral stories passed down for centuries, honesty is often described as the foundation of good character.
Why?
Because honesty doesn't just affect you. It shapes how people live together. A society, a family, or even a friendship works best when there's honesty. Without it, trust disappears, and when trust disappears, relationships begin to break. So when we say honesty is the best policy, we are actually connecting honesty to two very big ideas: trust and character. Trust is like a bridge between people. Every time you are honest, you make that bridge stronger. People can rely on you. They feel safe to share their thoughts and feelings with you. They believe in your words. And when there is trust, relationships, whether at home, with friends, or at work, become stronger and healthier. But when honesty is missing, that bridge of trust cracks. Over time, it can break completely, leaving relationships weak or even destroyed. Character is the second part. Character is who you are when nobody is watching. Being honest shows that you respect yourself and respect others. It shows responsibility and reliability. Over time, honesty builds your reputation and your dignity. People may forget your mistakes, but they will remember your honesty. But now comes the important question. Is honesty always easy? The answer, of course, is no. Sometimes telling the truth feels scary. Sometimes it makes us feel vulnerable. Maybe you don't want to hurt someone's feelings. Maybe you're worried about conflict or judgment. And this leads us to a deeper question. Is honesty always the right thing to do? For example, if telling the whole truth might upset someone deeply, should we still say it? Or is it sometimes better to be gentle, to choose words carefully? This shows us that honesty is not only about facts. It's also about how we share the truth. True honesty includes being open, but also being kind. It means finding balance, speaking truth with thoughtfulness, knowing when and how to express it in a way that respects others as well as ourselves. So, as we continue in today's episode, I invite you to keep this question in mind. How can we practice honesty in a way that builds trust and shows good character, even when it's difficult? That is the real challenge of honesty. And that's also the gift it gives us. The benefits of being honest. Now that we've explored what honesty really means, and we've unpacked the phrase honesty is the best policy, let's go a little deeper and talk about the benefits of being honest. When you choose honesty, what actually changes in your life? What positive effects does it bring? The truth is, honesty can transform not only your relationships with others, but also your relationship with yourself. Why is honesty such an important quality to have, not just in language learning, but in life itself? Why do people often say that honesty makes everything better? One of the biggest reasons is this. Honesty builds trust. And trust is the foundation of every strong relationship. It doesn't matter what kind of relationship we're talking about, friendship, marriage, a business partnership, or even the relationship you have with yourself. Without trust, it all falls apart.
Think about it.
When someone is honest with you, how do you feel? You feel safe. You know where you stand. You don't have to guess what they're really thinking or wonder if they're hiding something from you. There's no confusion. There's no second guessing. And the same is true the other way around. When you are honest with others, they feel safe with you. They feel comfortable being open and honest with you in return. Honesty creates a healthy space, a space where people can speak openly, solve problems faster, and support each other better. But that's not the only benefit. Honesty also helps you boost your own confidence. Now, that might sound surprising at first. How does honesty connect to confidence? Let's break it down. When you're honest, you're simply being real. You're not pretending. You're not playing a role. You're standing in your truth. And that takes courage. Every single time you speak your truth, even when it's difficult, you send yourself a message. My voice matters. My values matter. My choices matter. And with each honest moment, your self-respect grows stronger. Little by little, your confidence becomes more solid. And here's something else. People don't always have to agree with you to respect you. They might not like what you say, but very often they'll still appreciate your honesty. And most importantly, even if no one else notices, you respect yourself. And that self-respect is priceless. Another powerful benefit of honesty is this. It can actually reduce stress and anxiety. Think about a time when you told a lie. What happened afterward? Chances are you felt nervous about being caught. You probably replayed the moment in your head again and again, worrying about what might happen if the truth came out. That mental stress builds up like a heavy weight. But when you tell the truth, that weight isn't there. There's nothing to hide, nothing to remember, nothing to cover up. You're free. You can rest easier at night. You can look people in the eye without fear. Yes, sometimes telling the truth feels uncomfortable in the moment, but afterward, it usually brings relief, like a deep breath you've been holding for too long finally being released. Let me share a quick story from my own life. Years ago, I had a close friend who invited me to help with a group project. At the time, I said yes because I didn't want to disappoint them. But deep down, I knew I didn't really have the time or energy to commit. So I delayed, made excuses, and slowly the situation became messy. My friend grew frustrated, and I felt guilty. Finally, I decided to come clean. I admitted that I had overpromised, that I wasn't able to give the project what it needed, and that I felt bad for letting them down. To my surprise, my friend wasn't angry. In fact, they were thankful that I finally told the truth. That honest conversation actually helped us rebuild trust, and we are still friends today. Looking back, I realized something very important. If I had been honest from the beginning, we could have avoided all that stress and tension. The truth might hurt for a moment, but dishonesty can hurt for much, much longer. Now let me ask you, have you ever felt relief after telling the truth, even if it was hard? Maybe you admitted something you had been hiding. Maybe you finally expressed what was on your mind. Think about how you felt afterward. Most likely, it was like a weight being lifted off your shoulders. That's the power of honesty. It clears the air, it frees you, and it lets you move forward. Of course, honesty doesn't guarantee that everything will go smoothly. People may not always react the way you hope. But here's the thing. In most cases, honesty makes relationships stronger, not weaker. It gives people the chance to truly understand you, the real you. And that's worth so much more than temporary comfort. So as we move through this episode, remember, honesty is not just a moral rule or an old proverb. It's a tool that helps us connect with others, a tool that helps us grow, and a tool that helps us live with more confidence, more trust, and more peace. The cost of dishonesty, even small lies. Now, let's turn the coin and look at the other side of the story. We've talked about the benefits of being honest. But what happens when we're not honest? What's the real cost of lying? Many people believe that small lies don't really matter. We sometimes call them white lies. These are the so-called harmless lies we tell to avoid hurting someone's feelings. For example, saying, "I love your cooking," even when the food wasn't great. Or saying, "I'm fine," when deep down we're not fine at all. On the surface, these lies might seem polite or even kind. But here's the problem. If we're not careful, even white lies can create bigger issues. And when they become a habit, they can quietly damage trust and even weaken relationships. Then there are half-truths. A half-truth is when you say something that's partly true, but you leave out important details. For example, you might tell your boss, "I've started the project." Technically, it's true. You've written the title, but you haven't actually done the work. Is that really honesty? Not quite. Half-truths can be just as harmful as lies because they confuse people. They trust your words, but they don't get the full picture. Another type of dishonesty is called a lie of omission, when you don't say something important. Imagine your friend is about to make a big decision, and you know something that could change their choice. But you stay silent. You didn't say a lie, but you didn't tell the truth either. Sometimes, silence speaks louder than words. The point is this: all forms of dishonesty, white lies, half-truths, lies of omission, they can hurt people. They create distance. They damage trust. And maybe most importantly, they can hurt you. Dishonesty leaves you feeling anxious, guilty, or uncomfortable inside, even if no one else ever finds out. Let me share a short story that really taught me this lesson. A few years ago, I agreed to go to a coworker's birthday dinner. On the day of the event, I was tired and honestly just didn't feel like going. Instead of telling the truth, I made up a small excuse. I said I had a family emergency. At first, it felt easy, no conflict, no awkward questions. But a few days later, that same coworker asked me how my family was doing. Suddenly, I had to keep lying to make my story sound real. One small lie led to another. And before long, I started to feel embarrassed. What's interesting is this: my coworker never discovered the truth. But the relationship still changed.
Why?
Because I knew. I knew I hadn't been honest. And that secret weighed on me. I started avoiding conversations, and the friendship never felt the same afterward. That's the thing about dishonesty. Even when nobody catches you, you catch yourself. You carry the secret, and carrying a lie can feel heavy. It takes mental energy to keep it alive. You have to remember what you said, who you said it to, and how to act around them so you don't slip up. That pressure builds, and over time, it can lead to stress, anxiety, and guilt. Socially, dishonesty breaks connections. Once someone finds out you lied, even once, they begin to question everything you say. They might wonder, what else aren't they telling me? And rebuilding that trust is not easy. It's like breaking a mirror. You can glue it back together, but the cracks will always be there. This is the true cost of dishonesty. Lies may seem small in the moment, but they grow over time. And while they may protect us from discomfort for a little while, in the long run, they create much more pain. Why is it so hard to be honest sometimes? So, if honesty can give us trust, confidence, respect, and peace of mind, then here's the big question. Why do so many of us still find it so hard to be honest? Why is it so difficult, at times, to simply tell the truth, not only to others but also to ourselves? Let's take a closer look at some of the reasons. 1. Fear of judgment. One of the biggest reasons people hide the truth is because of fear. More specifically, the fear of being judged. Deep down, we worry that if others knew what we really think, what we really feel, or what we've really done, they might look at us differently. We imagine that they might criticize us, laugh at us, or think we're weak. So, instead of sharing honestly, we stay quiet or say the thing we believe people want to hear. This fear can be especially strong in certain places, like in our families, in our workplaces, or in cultures where appearances matter a lot. In those environments, people often feel pressure to look perfect or acceptable, and honesty feels risky. But the truth is, hiding our real feelings or experiences to avoid judgment only creates distance. It may protect us in the moment, but over time, it makes it harder for others to truly know us. 2. Fear of conflict. Another big reason is fear of conflict. Being honest often means saying something that isn't easy to hear. Think about a time when you wanted to give feedback to a colleague, or when you needed to tell a friend that their behavior hurt you. Those are uncomfortable conversations. They can create tension. They can even lead to arguments or disagreements. And many of us hate conflict. We try to avoid it at all costs. So instead of being honest, we stay silent. We put on a smile, but inside we might feel sad, frustrated, or even angry. The problem is those hidden feelings don't just disappear. They build up. And over time, avoiding conflict by staying silent can actually harm relationships more than facing the issue with open, respectful honesty. 3. Perfectionism. The next reason is perfectionism. This is the belief that we always have to be perfect, or at least look perfect in front of others. When we hold ourselves to impossible standards, it becomes very difficult to admit mistakes, weaknesses, or doubts. We don't want to say, I don't know, or I need help, because that feels like failure. But here's the truth. Being human means being imperfect. Every single one of us makes mistakes. And being honest about that doesn't make us weak. It makes us real. In fact, when we admit our struggles or uncertainties, people usually feel closer to us, not further away. It shows them that we are human, just like they are. 4. People-pleasing. Another reason many of us struggle with honesty is people-pleasing. This means we put other people's feelings, needs, or opinions above our own, often just to keep everyone happy. People-pleasers often say yes when they really want to say no. They stay silent when something doesn't feel right. They pretend to agree, just to avoid making others upset. This habit can come from many places: childhood experiences, cultural expectations, or even personal insecurities. And while kindness is a wonderful quality, always hiding your true feelings just to keep others happy can leave you feeling invisible, stressed, and even resentful. The truth is, real kindness includes honesty. When you share your thoughts respectfully, you're giving people the chance to really know you. 5. Imposter syndrome. Finally, there's something called imposter syndrome. This is when you feel like a fraud, like you don't actually deserve your success, or like one day people will find out you're not as capable as they think. When someone feels this way, being honest becomes very difficult. They don't want to admit their doubts or struggles because they're afraid it will expose them. So instead, they pretend to have everything under control. But pretending only makes the fear stronger. And it keeps them trapped in a cycle of dishonesty with themselves and with others. So, as you can see, there are many reasons why honesty can feel hard: fear of judgment, fear of conflict, perfectionism, people-pleasing, and imposter syndrome. And here's the important part: none of this makes you a bad person. It just makes you human. Every one of us struggles with honesty at times. But by noticing why it feels hard, we can start to gently challenge those fears and make space for more truth in our lives. Honesty with yourself, the foundation of growth. Now, let's shift our focus inward. We've been talking about honesty with others, but one of the hardest and most important kinds of honesty is actually being honest with yourself. This is where true growth begins. Because if you can't be real with yourself, it's almost impossible to be real with anyone else. What does it mean to be honest with yourself? Being honest with yourself means developing self-awareness. It means slowing down and really facing the truth about who you are, what you want, and what might be holding you back. It's about looking closely at your thoughts, your feelings, your habits, and your actions, even the parts you don't like to admit. And here's the thing: this kind of honesty isn't easy. It requires courage. It requires looking in the mirror and saying, "This is me, the good and the not so good." Facing flaws without excuses. Maybe you have a bad habit, like procrastinating, always putting things off until the last minute. Maybe you react too quickly with anger. Maybe you avoid difficult conversations or feel too afraid to try something new. Being honest with yourself means recognizing these parts of you, not making excuses, not blaming others, but saying, "Yes, this is something I struggle with." It doesn't mean judging yourself harshly. It just means seeing the truth clearly, because you can't change what you refuse to face. Knowing what you really want. Self-honesty also means being clear about your goals and desires. Sometimes we fool ourselves into chasing things because they sound good or because other people expect them from us. Maybe you're working toward a career that looks impressive but doesn't make you happy. Maybe you tell yourself you want to be more confident, but deep down, you're scared of the changes that would take. Real honesty is asking, what do I truly want? What makes me feel alive? And then being brave enough to follow that truth, even if it's different from what others expect of you. Owning your mistakes. Another key part of being honest with yourself is taking responsibility for your mistakes. Everyone makes mistakes. It's part of being human. But some people hide them. Some blame others. Some pretend the mistake never happened. And when we do that, we block our own growth. True self-honesty sounds like this: I was wrong. I didn't handle that well. I could do better next time. When you can say those words, you open up space for learning, growth, and change. Can we change without honesty? Here's a question worth reflecting on. Can we truly change if we're not honest about what needs changing? Think about it. It's hard to fix something if you don't admit it's broken. Without self-honesty, we repeat the same patterns. We avoid decisions we need to make. We keep telling ourselves stories instead of facing reality. But when you face the truth, even when it's uncomfortable, you give yourself the chance to transform. You stop running from yourself and start building the life you actually want. A simple example. Let me give you a simple example. Imagine someone who says they want to improve their English. They tell themselves, "I'm serious about learning." But day after day, they don't practice. Instead, they keep making excuses. "I'm too tired, I don't have time. I'll do it tomorrow." Without honesty, this person will stay stuck. They'll believe they're trying, but in reality, they're not moving forward. But if they practice self-honesty, the story changes. They admit, "I'm not practicing enough. I keep avoiding it, and that's why I'm not improving." That honesty is uncomfortable at first, but it's also powerful. Because once they admit the truth, they can make new choices, like practicing just 10 minutes a day. Small steps, but real ones. So remember this. Being honest with yourself is the foundation of all growth. It's not about being perfect. It's about being real. Because when you face the truth, you gain the power to change it. The long-term power of being honest. When we think about honesty, most of us focus on the short term. We think about how uncomfortable it can feel to tell the truth. We worry about the fear, the awkwardness, or the conflict that honesty might bring in the moment. And yes, honesty can be hard. But what we often forget is that honesty has an incredible long-term power. It doesn't just affect one conversation or one choice. It shapes the kind of person we become over years and decades. A story of integrity. Let me share a story that has always stayed with me. I once worked with a colleague, we'll call her Maria. She was part of a busy team in the office. One day, Maria discovered a mistake in a project report. It wasn't a small mistake either. It could have created serious problems for the whole team. Now, in that moment, Maria had a choice. She could ignore it. She could cover it up and hope no one noticed. Or she could step forward, admit the mistake, and take responsibility.
Maria chose honesty.
She told her manager about the error. At first, some people worried she'd get into trouble or that she'd be blamed. But something different happened. Over time, everyone began to see her honesty as a sign of integrity. It showed she cared about the team, about the work, and about doing the right thing. That moment of honesty earned her deep trust. And eventually, Maria became one of the most respected and valued leaders in the company. Her story is a reminder that honesty doesn't just help us in the short term. It builds consistency, trust, and reputation over the long term. The emotional benefits of living honestly. But the power of honesty isn't only about how others see us. It's also about how we feel inside. When we live honestly, we experience peace of mind. We don't have to keep track of what lies we told or feel the stress of covering something up. There's a freedom that comes from knowing you're living in alignment with your values. Honesty also builds confidence. Every time you speak your truth, even in small ways, you remind yourself that your voice matters. You start to trust yourself more. And that self-trust is the foundation of real confidence. This creates something even bigger: authenticity. Authenticity means living in alignment. Your words match your actions, and your actions match your heart. And when that happens, you feel more whole, more real, more at peace. Honesty and accountability. Another powerful part of long-term honesty is accountability. Accountability means taking responsibility for your words and actions. It means admitting when you're wrong, learning from mistakes, and making changes when needed. And here's the truth. Accountability is a strength, not a weakness. People respect those who can say, "I made a mistake, but I'm working to fix it." They respect honesty far more than excuses or blame. When you build a habit of accountability, you show maturity, you show reliability, and little by little, you shape a reputation that others can trust. So remember, honesty is not just about one moment of telling the truth. It's about building habits of integrity, consistency, and accountability that shape who we are. Over time, those habits create lasting trust, stronger relationships, and a deeper sense of inner peace. Honesty, in the long run, becomes more than just a choice. It becomes part of your character, part of your identity, and part of the legacy you leave behind. When honesty hurts, and how to be kind yet truthful. We've talked a lot about why honesty matters, how it builds trust, gives us confidence, and strengthens our relationships. But let's be real for a moment. Sometimes honesty hurts. And this is one of the biggest challenges we face. How do we tell the truth without being unkind? The difference between honest and harsh. There's a big difference between being honest and being harsh. Some people say things in a way that feels like an attack. They speak without care, without empathy, and then defend themselves with, "I'm just being honest." But here's the truth. Honesty without kindness isn't courage, it's carelessness. When honesty is delivered in a harsh way, people stop listening. They feel hurt, defensive, or even ashamed. And that's not the goal of honesty. This is why many people fear honesty, not because they can't handle the truth, but because of how it's delivered. Tactful honesty, truth with love. So, what's the alternative? It's something I like to call tactful honesty. You could also think of it as truth with love. This means telling the truth in a way that's compassionate, respectful, and helpful. It's not about avoiding the hard parts. It's about delivering them in a way that someone can actually hear. There's a saying that goes, "Say it in a way they can hear." If the person feels attacked, they might shut down. But if they feel understood, they'll be much more open to your words. An example? Honest but kind. Let's take a simple example. Imagine your friend is practicing for a job interview and asks for your feedback. You notice that during their practice, they keep using filler words like, and you know. And they don't make much eye contact. Now, you could be very blunt and say, "You sounded nervous and you didn't look confident at all." That's honest, yes, but it could also crush their confidence. Or you could say it differently. "I think you have strong ideas, and you clearly care about this job." If you work a little on cutting out filler words and keeping eye contact, your confidence will really shine through. See the difference? Both versions are honest. But one is discouraging, and the other is supportive. That's what tactful honesty looks like. Truth spoken with kindness. Speaking with care. Being tactful doesn't mean lying. It doesn't mean avoiding difficult conversations. What it does mean is thinking before you speak, choosing the right time, the right tone, and the right words. It means asking yourself, what's the purpose of my honesty right now? Am I trying to help this person grow? Or am I just trying to prove a point? When your goal is to help, your honesty becomes a gift instead of a weapon. Reflection. So, here's something to think about. Have you ever had to say something difficult to someone you care about? Did you find a way to say it gently? Or maybe you've received honest feedback from someone else. Feedback that was hard to hear at first, but was given with care and, in the end, helped you grow. Those moments are reminders that honesty doesn't have to break someone down. When combined with empathy, honesty can actually build someone up. Cultural views on honesty. Is it always the best policy? We've seen how honesty can build trust, confidence, and peace of mind. But here's something important to remember. Honesty doesn't look the same everywhere. Different cultures have different ways of expressing truth. What feels honest and refreshing in one culture might come across as rude, disrespectful, or even embarrassing in another. So the question is honesty always the best policy? And does it always look the same everywhere in the world? Honesty and saving face. In many cultures, especially across Asia, politeness and harmony are often seen as more important than blunt truth. People may choose softer words or even avoid certain topics, not because they want to lie, but because they want to protect someone's feelings and dignity. This connects to the idea of saving face. Saving face means protecting someone's reputation, dignity, or sense of pride. It's about avoiding embarrassment, both for yourself and for others. For example, imagine your friend cooks a meal that doesn't taste great. In a very direct culture, someone might say, "This isn't good, maybe too salty." But in a culture where saving face matters, the response might be, "Thank you so much for cooking. I appreciate the effort." Both are honest in their own way. One focuses on the food, the other focuses on kindness. Neither is necessarily wrong. It just depends on what the culture values more, truth or harmony. Radical honesty, the other extreme. On the other side, there's the idea of radical honesty. This approach says honesty should always be absolute, no matter what. People who practice radical honesty say exactly what they think and feel, without sugarcoating or avoiding tough topics. This can feel refreshing because nothing is hidden. You always know where you stand with someone who practices radical honesty. But at the same time, it can also feel harsh. Words spoken without care can sting, even if they're true. The balance between the two. Both approaches, saving face and radical honesty, have strengths and challenges. Saving face keeps peace and shows respect in social situations, but sometimes it prevents important truths from being shared. Radical honesty creates openness and authenticity, but without empathy, it can damage relationships. Most of us live somewhere in between. We choose honesty, but we also choose kindness. We want to speak our truth, but in a way that helps, not harms. Reflect on your own culture. Even within one country or one family, people see honesty differently. Some families value directness. Say what you mean. Others value harmony. Don't rock the boat. So let me ask you, how is honesty viewed in your culture or upbringing? Do people speak openly and directly? Or do they use softer language to protect feelings? When is it okay to tell the truth? And when is it better to be polite? Taking time to reflect on these questions can help you understand not only your own communication style, but also how to connect better with people from other backgrounds. Honesty as a skill. In our global world, where we meet and work with people from many different cultures, this awareness is so important. Understanding cultural differences in honesty helps us avoid misunderstandings and build stronger relationships. But remember, this doesn't mean we should avoid honesty altogether. Instead, it means we need to find a balance, to be truthful and respectful, to speak our truth in a way that connects, not divides. That might mean choosing our words more carefully. It might mean listening more deeply. It might mean paying attention to body language or the reactions of the person we're speaking with. Honesty isn't just a rule to follow, it's a skill. And like any skill, it takes practice, empathy, and awareness to use it wisely. So maybe honesty isn't one size fits all. Instead, it's a dance between truth and kindness, between openness and respect. And learning how to do that dance well is one of the most powerful tools we can develop. Bringing it all together, the power of honesty. As we near the end of today's episode, let's take a moment to reflect on everything we've explored about honesty. Honesty is so much more than simply telling the truth. It's about being real with ourselves and with others. It's about building trust, living with courage, and showing self-respect. We've seen that honesty helps us connect deeply with people, grow in confidence, and find inner peace. It is one of the most valuable qualities we can practice. And yet, honesty is not always easy. Why honesty can be hard. Being honest takes courage, especially when we fear judgment, conflict, or disappointment. It requires self-awareness to admit our mistakes and face our fears. And honesty doesn't always mean saying everything bluntly. Sometimes it's about choosing the right words, speaking with kindness, considering others' feelings. Even with these challenges, honesty is always worth it. The rewards of choosing honesty. When we choose honesty, we choose freedom. Freedom from secrets, from worry, and from the stress of hiding parts of ourselves. We also choose growth and connection. We choose to live authentically, in a way that reflects who we truly are. And that authenticity has a ripple effect, strengthening relationships, improving communication, and building self-respect. A simple challenge. So, here's a challenge for you this week. Try to be a little more honest in one area of your life. Maybe it's being honest with a friend about how you really feel, admitting a mistake at work, asking for help when you need it, being honest with yourself about a goal, a fear, or a feeling you've been avoiding. It doesn't have to be a big moment. Even small steps toward honesty can make a big difference. A reflection question. As you think about this challenge, ask yourself, what is one truth I've been avoiding? And what would happen if I finally said it out loud? Imagine the relief you might feel. Imagine the space it could create for change. Imagine the new possibilities that honesty could open for you. Thank you for joining me today on Super English Talks. I hope this episode has inspired you to embrace honesty as a tool for growth, connection, and freedom. Remember, every journey starts with a single step. And today, you've taken that step toward living more honestly. I look forward to being with you again soon for our next episode. Until then, be kind to yourself, stay curious, and keep coding your English and your life.